So, today we got our guest speaker, Jay Haupt with Jay Paints. So tell the viewers a little bit about Jay, man.
Well, I'm just a young entrepreneur. I started Jay Paints in 2002. Kind of just started it to put myself through college, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of blossomed from there. We took it from bucket to, now I've got tons of investments and people that work for me, and we've got a pretty sustainable client base and everything like that. So, as far as that goes, it went from just putting myself through college to my main income.
Wow.
Which is a pretty big leap.
Absolutely, man. That's amazing. So tell the viewers a little bit about your background, like how, you're a little bit about maybe childhood, where you come from, all these kind of things, and then we'll kind of work our way up to where you're at now.
Okay. Yeah, when I was younger, I was always working on stuff. I was always trying to fix stuff. Even as young as like 8 years old, I was putting together gas-powered remote control airplanes and working on electronics, and I was always taking it apart and fixing stuff and putting it back together. So, I was always fascinated with, how things work and why they worked, not just how, but, a million other questions, with anything that moved or had electronics. I was really into that stuff. So that kind of, slingshotted me into this career almost, because I started out studying computers in high school. I got a computer and technical degree from Mill Creek Center. So what that is that's a 2-year technical degree, and I got that actually while I was in high school. I was pretty far ahead in my core curriculum in high school. It was experience, and it was nice, but it just didn't end up being what I wanted to do. I kind of still studied that a little bit into college. I went to Johnson County Community College, straight out of high school.
And that's in Overland Park,
That's
Kansas.
in Overland Park, yeah. And that's a great school as well. And they're known for their 2-year degrees.
Yes.
Not their bachelors. They don't.
The 2-year that I took 6 years.
Yeah, it happens more often than you'd think. But I spent 3 years there because I was working. Not just Jay Paints, because that's when I started. It was in 2002, right when I started going to Johnson County Community College. But I was working that job as well as other jobs. I was putting in, I don't even know, like 60, sometimes 70 hours a week, and going full-time at school. So, it was a very full load, and a lot of my friends, I think even you mentioned, I don't know how you do that.
How you do that.
Yeah. And, to this day, I still, I attest that, what else could I cut out? It was sleep.
Yeah.
that was the only thing that gave me more hours in a day. And being an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to do that kind of thing. You have to, you have to work the hours that, other people won't to be something later in life that other people can't be. I mean, I'm a firm believer that if you work hard, when you're younger, that it can pay off tenfold. Once you get established and once you get going. It was great. I love that college, and I learned a lot. It was just a liberal arts degree, and pretty much got that as a bonus. I wasn't actually planning on getting a degree there. I was just gonna take some classes and then go to KU. But by the time I was about to leave to go to KU, I only needed like a couple more credits, and they were going to give me another degree. So I was like, well, one more semester, why not? So I ended up staying and getting that liberal arts degree.
Do you think that that degree has helped you in any way in your career right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that, in my opinion, any kind of knowledge that you can gain along the way, it helps. Any kind of business contacts or friends, you'd be surprised how much even just a friend contact can really do with helping you become a successful entrepreneur. One business lead can be, golden. I mean, you can go from, having a one-person crew to needing a three or four-person crew with just one good lead. Especially in the construction business. If I when I was at JUCO, I actually started working for new construction, and that was one of my pretty repeat clients there for a while, and I would never have gained that client if I hadn't gone to JUCO, because I met him on campus, and so I mean you just never know, and I learned a lot there as well. Even though I did kind of gear it towards computers, that stuff has still helped me in my career, because I can create my own files for Excel, like my own tax documents. I create all my own Excel documents for tax purposes and stuff like that. And, I also do all my own taxes and finances and accounting, and I do all of that. It's all proprietary.
So you learned that through some actual courses that you took that really taught you those skills.
Yes,
it wasn't just the liberal arts. It was literally like accounting or finance. Or
so what liberal arts means is I was just studying a lot of stuff. I was taking the core classes that were really needed to get my bachelor's degree, which is what I was shooting for. And I had always had my eye on KU from day one.
Why is that?
And I'm just a Jay Haupt fan.
Okay, Jay Haupt fan, yes.
I'm just a Jay Haupt fan.
Rock chalk.
Yeah. So I've been a fan since I was a little kid, and it was just something that I always wanted to do, and my brother Dennis and my brother Gary both went there, so it was kind of just one of those things that I was like, I gotta do this, and it was on my bucket list from really young. So
that's one thing I notice about you, Jay, and I've known you, Jay, for years now.
It's been a while.
And it's been great. The thing I've noticed about you, and you just said it too, is that you want something, and you just go after it. You wanted to go to that school. You wanted to go to Johnson County. You went and got it done. You wanted to go to KU. You went and got it done. You wanted to go and get your painting thing to the next level, and you went and got it done. The thing that I like about you is that you set your mind to something like that, and you just get it done.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
And I don't know exactly where I get that from, but I've always kind of been that way. I've always been like, well, here's the next step. And then when you're owning a business, you have to be that way. You have to be able to say, I want to be successful, but what are some steps that I can take now? Because tomorrow doesn't matter. Yesterday doesn't really exist. So right now is the only time you ever really have to do anything. Take this, for instance. We're doing this podcast right now.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, this is one step that, that we're both taking right now to try to go in a certain direction. And if you don't take those steps, those baby steps, sometimes, you'll never achieve your goals. And even the smallest step forward is better than standing still, and it's way better than taking a step back.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree.
It's but it's tough. I mean, being very goal oriented takes organization, or if nothing else, just a lot of persistence.
So where do you think you got that hunger? Because I mean, you always been hungry. I mean, you take the actions, but it always comes from you were so hungry, and you still are.
Yeah.
Where do you think that hunger's coming from?
It's funny you asked me that, because I actually had a pretty bad couple years here recently, and I kind of lost that hunger. And I had been searching for it for a while, because Jay Paints had kind of gone on a long stint of almost coasting, where we're sustainable without me doing too much, but still making it through. And I got to a point recently where I became in a lull, and I was asking myself the same question. I was like, where am I where did I, I used to have all this fire and drive. And so what I did was I signed up for a marathon. And, you would think that those two aren't related, but I assure you they are. Because fitness, you have to start with baby steps. I was a little bit out of shape at that point. I was in a lull in business. I was upset that I'd lost that edge, that
this
fire.
Was 2 years ago, you said.
Yeah, it's been a little while. I signed up for the marathon. It took me a while to actually end up implementing that action, and it eats at me a little bit that it took me too long to try to regain it. The fact is you gotta do those kind of things to regain the fire. So like when you're training for something like a marathon, what you're really doing is you're almost implementing a business plan.
Right.
So you have to take baby steps. You have to do the right things in the right order at the right time. You have to, so that's what I really needed. I highly suggest anybody that's going to, be successful or wants to be successful or even has a wild hair. I highly suggest, work out. Do a few workouts a week minimum. The long runs that I've been running on has really given me some time to reflect and made me realize why I had that fire, where it was coming from, and since then I've actually I've regained it.
You said something that really stuck out to me, Jay, is that you had a lot of fire, but then there was a time that you lost that fire and you knew that, hey, that's not the real Jay. And you were searching deep. A lot of people go through that, and a lot of people can't get out of that.
Yeah.
So they'll have all these big dreams, they'll do something, and then they get a good result, but then all of a sudden something happens, and then they like fall off the grid, right? And for them to regain that, a lot of people can't.
Yeah, it's very hard.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I think, what you just said about doing those activities, like you're saying, for example, like the exercising or the running for the marathon, it puts you in a disciplinary mode, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that it's important to branch out, especially if you're in a lull. You should do something that scares the hell out of you. I mean, because if you're not taking a risk, then you're really not trying. I mean, especially like in business, like if you're not pushing yourself and you don't fall once in a while, then you're really, you're not really that trying that hard. And you can say that you're trying hard all you want, but unless you're failing once in a while, you're really not pushing. And that's the same thing with working out and with business. If because I had multiple things where I would walk away just beat over some workouts that I was doing trying to get ready for this marathon. And it really, some of them really got me good, and I was like, man, maybe I'm too old for this, I'm like, I'm not even that old, and I'm like, man, maybe.
I was going to say, come on, Jay, we're like about the same age.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
But those thoughts go through your mind. You're like, man, maybe I should quit. Maybe I should, when you're really pushing yourself, those thoughts should go through your mind,
And that's the thing, Jay, is, it's tough. A lot of people go through that toughness. And mentally, I think, you're probably going to touch on bases on this, but mentally, you need to be tougher, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes physically, you got to be tough, but mentally, I think you got to be tougher to go through that.
So, on the mental aspect, you've been asking me, how I got that fire back. Part of the reason I had lost that fire was I stopped learning. I had gotten complacent. And in my opinion, being complacent is the worst thing you can be if you're going to be anything in business. That's the worst thing you can do, is to get set in a coast mode, is what I call it. Once you're in that coast mode, that's the beginning of the end for your business. It really is, because then you stop searching for clients, which I was. I had pretty much stopped searching for clients. I had stopped really advertising very hard because I'd gotten down on my luck because some of the advertising that I had tried really hadn't worked out and hadn't been bringing in the clients. So I'd pretty much just stopped and started relying solely on my word of mouth. But, you know, even that starts going downhill if you don't have that fire. But as far as the mental aspect goes, you know, never stop learning is key. I mean, lately I've been reading all kinds of books, and by reading I mean audio.
Yeah, driving.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm you can tell I'm moving. I never stop. You know, best of all, I never stop moving.
I mean, I'm happy that you're actually pretty still right now.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, we're about to do this podcast. I don't know how I'm going to put him in one corner and lock him down.
Yeah, and it's...
Put you in chains?
Yeah, you'd have to lock me down. And that's I think that's part of where my fire comes from is because, you know, I'm always looking for the next thing. And, you know, and part of that has to be, you know, where do you learn your next thing? How do you learn your next thing, you know? Learning is almost as big of a deal as, you know, accomplishing your next goal. If you're accomplishing your goals and you're not learning anything new, eventually you're going to run out of goals to accomplish because you haven't learned any new higher goals that you could attain.
Speaking of some of these books and audios that you have been reading and listening to, do you have a few for the audiences that you can suggest on some matters?
Yeah. One main one that I really liked is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, dude, I love that one. Yes.
That's a really good one. Classic. And he's got a long series of books that are related to that. But you know, that one specifically kind of hits home because you know, it kind of goes over, you know, how you really don't have a past and it's really just a memory trail. So, you know, what you have is today and right now. And what you choose to do with right now is what you choose to do with it. And there's really no future because the future could always change. You know, one decision right now could change forever.
Yes.
Like if I chose right now to end Jay Paints, you know, that changes my entire future. So you can't really, you know, look to the future because it doesn't really exist. And too many people, you know, who want success, you know, really strive for the future instead of living for now. And you know, I think that they're kind of misguided in that.
And here's the thing, Jay, is that's a really good topic by itself because I think a lot of people misunderstand that whole concept. You know, when we're talking about like for example, like you're saying, don't live for the future. You're not little. I don't think you're really telling anyone, hey, don't think about your future.
No, absolutely not.
So that's the part I think a lot of people get mixed up because when they hear that, they're like, you're always wanted this in your future, so that's how you know when you want to make a goal and go after it. I don't think we're saying that here. I think what's happening is that we're saying, do everything you can now.
Yeah.
If you stop doing what you can now and you just in a dream for the future, nothing's really going to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even with your past, you know, I think what you're saying is that, you know, it's not that the past isn't really important. It's just your past is going to make who you are, right?
It builds you to where you're at. Yeah. But, you know, it still doesn't really exist. I mean, so you really have to focus in on, you know, focusing on what you can change. And it's right now. And you
just
know,
like what we're doing right now.
You know, if you want to achieve something in the future, it's awesome to think and try to plan and strategize to get to that point that you want to be in the future. I absolutely recommend trying to get a strategy, you know, to get to where you want to be. But realize that tomorrow doesn't really exist. So if you want something tomorrow, you better take some steps today to get to that point. Otherwise, you'll always be, tomorrow.
It's the point I think you made that you said one more thing that I really liked is that you never know if you're even going to live tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you don't do the things now,
you never know.
You never know.
You never know if tomorrow even exists. You know, so.
you had that fire,
Mm-hmm.
and then you lost some of that fire. What happened? Because I think a lot of people can maybe relate to that.
There was a couple things that really happened that kind of caused that fire to go away. Like I said, the biggest thing was complacency. I hate to bring up relationships, but sometimes they have a big role on how you're treating your business and how much time you're investing in your business and stuff like that. And a good partner is, in my opinion, helps you try to push you to achieve bigger and bigger goals. And I've always struggled with finding the perfect match. But I think that's because I'm a very passionate guy, and that spills over into relationships, that spills over into friendships, that spills over into every aspect of my life. And it's tough to hide that passion sometimes, and it can be hard on relationships as well. And so part of that was me struggling internally to try to find a partner, because I thought there for the longest time I was like, man, I'm getting old. I need to find somebody that's going to be around and whatnot. And part of that discovery that I lost the fire is I kind of realized, like, it doesn't, that stuff doesn't matter, that I shouldn't be letting that affect business and other things in my life. And I was pretty much a victim of letting my passions in one area of my life overshadow other areas. And that, I think a lot of people fall into that, to be honest, and they don't realize it. Most people, they don't realize it. So that was part of it, but the other part was just getting into a funk. I had just gotten to a point where I didn't have to search for clients. I didn't have to go do these things. I could just
kind of got comfortable.
Yeah, I got too comfortable. Yeah, and and so it was a double-edged sword. So I was kind of using my passion in a different way, and it wasn't helping me towards my business anymore. It was kind of being used on friendships and stuff like that, which I absolutely don't regret one bit. But you gotta make a balance. I think that everything in life, you gotta make sure there's a good balance in it. And so that's what I've been trying to do to kind of regain that fire, is try to get a balance back into that personal life versus work life, because it can be tough. I mean, the toughest part about being an entrepreneur is you're the only one responsible. So I mean, if tomorrow I want to wake up or not and sleep in till noon, I could do that. I could sleep in till noon tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, and so on and so forth. Would my business be successful? Probably not. I don't think that if you did those decisions, that it would be very successful at that point. But you have to keep rediscovering the fire, and that's what I've kind of realized is you almost have to just search for it constantly. And that's why I've been trying to work out more. I've been trying to learn more, read more, and I think that that's the biggest thing that's really helped me.
You're building you. Yeah. Before you can build your life. Yeah. Right? And that starts for you.
Yeah, and you have to start with a good foundation. So I always recommend college. I mean, I didn't end up using my degree at all. We didn't even go over that. I went on to KU and got a business finance degree through University of Kansas, and I graduated right when the markets tanked, and it was really tough. A lot of people that I graduated with sat unemployed for a couple years, and I was working away, making money. and they were going, man, I don't know what to do. And so I had a good, solid, plan B, which I've since then turned into my plan A. But, I never did end up using any of those degrees. And, part of me kind of regrets that I didn't, but, at the same time, I don't know. Being king is almost better at any price.
So let me ask you this. You're saying you should go to college?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Even if you think you're not going to use it, I still suggest formal schooling as far as college goes. Even if you get just a small 2-year degree, I still think that can be beneficial because you learn other things. You don't just, it's not just a degree. It's not just a piece of paper. You can go in to do accounting.
So what about for someone who just hates school? It's just not, there's certain people out there, and I'm sure they're probably going to be listening to this.
Oh yeah.
Is that they're going to know that, well, I don't want to go to college.
Yeah.
I don't want the university. It's not for me. Do you think that for people who are like that, there's still a chance to become what they want to become in life?
Oh, absolutely. For that kind of person, usually they're, it varies on the person really, but sometimes it's the structure of the school that they don't like. So for somebody like that, I'd suggest maybe getting some books on your own and just studying accounting or studying finance or whatever you're trying to go towards. And then when in doubt, I always suggest for any entrepreneur, I always suggest working for another company that does the same thing you're trying to start. So unless you're just starting something completely new, which is pretty rare anymore.
Right.
I always suggest that you work at least like a year or two under somebody else. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I always suggest go in there, learn what you can from them. You don't have to just copy and paste. You can take a little bit here, a little bit there. But
and also speaking of that, the lower amount of risk, because it's a big thing you're doing. Now we're talking about you got to be a risk taker.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's smart for people to what you're saying to do is because now they're not the ones that are liable for a lot of those things. They get to learn and they have that comfortability so that way they can build themselves within that company and then feel like, okay, I got everything I need. Now I'm going to go take that bigger risk and do it all myself.
Exactly. A lot of people think that being an entrepreneur, you have to try all these new things. Sometimes, you have to start out just doing what works. And once you get to know what works, you can kind of start trying other things, and expect failure. Because I've failed a lot.
But that hasn't stopped you.
Yeah, I know most people consider it a success. Well, you didn't see all the times where I fell flat on my face. And there was a lot of business ventures that I lost money on. Every single time that happened, I was down on my luck, going, oh man, how did I let this happen? But looking back, each one of those had a lesson, whether it was either just raise my prices for certain things, or B, don't ever do that again. Period. Like sometimes you just got to say, that's just not for me. Business, in general is tough like that, and you're gonna have failures. But if you don't take the risk, then you're really not trying. And you really won't have good success unless you take those risks. So like I said, it goes back to the complacency thing. If you can only do the things that that you're really, really good at, and you never step out of your comfort zone, you'll never discover something that you might make even more money on.
It's just like going and working out. You're a guy that works out.
Yeah.
If you just go 10 pounds every day,
yeah,
you might get a little tone. but you're not going to
You're
grow,
not gonna
right?
have any results.
You're
Yeah.
not going to get much results. But then
Yeah.
if you put another 5 pounds here, another 5 pounds there, and that's
Yeah.
out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
you're going to start gaining.
Yeah.
It's the same thing you're talking about.
I don't know how much weight you lift, but
let's not go there. I knew that I should have not brought this point up. You know, you're gonna put that on me. Okay.
But
well, let's go back to
but no, you're right though. You have to take baby steps sometimes, even with risk. Sometimes it's a baby step. You know, I think that you should be diverse. I think that you should have 12 different avenues, you know, at all times that you can have invested in. So assets or investments, and then you've got the income from your business, and you've got other things. So I think that you should never say, I'm going to bet the farm. You know how many farms have been lost because you
natural disaster.
Yeah, you double down and you bet the farm. That's I never taking risks is great. But make sure you're taking educated risks. That's my ultimate advice, especially in business.
Speaking of that, Jay, educated risk. How would someone know that they're taking an educated risk? I mean, how would they go about that?
So, something that I learned in Italy was Kepner-Trigo decision analysis. We all thought it was funny when we took it, but it actually has helped. And sometimes just writing it out. Writing something out can be the equivalent of reading it 7 times, as far as memory goes. Wow. And you literally you'll be 7 times more likely to remember something. So, say you want to accomplish A. What are the steps? So you write down the steps that you have to do, and then you say, then you try to be devil's advocate. So you try to say, what could go wrong, why this might be wrong, or why I shouldn't do this, So try to find the negatives and all that stuff. Even have somebody, that you trust, and hopefully they're pretty educated too. That way they can help you. Because taking somebody's opinion, you got to be careful whose opinion you're taking.
You say that, and I had a mentor. This is funny. So he always said, if you want to be a millionaire, for example, you don't go to someone who makes $100,000 a year and ask them, how do you become a millionaire, right?
You don't. You ask a billionaire.
You ask a billionaire,
and
then you'll definitely be a millionaire because he's been there and done that.
Yeah. So it's the same thing, make sure your peer group is really a peer group, or a mentor, like you said, finding a mentor that has the time to help you is worth its weight in gold. And I highly suggest, keeping your group intelligent, because, if I just accepted anybody's opinion, I could go to YouTube, and find video after video after video. But if I'm not scrutinizing through those videos and I just do whatever those videos say, some of them are going to lead me completely in the opposite direction and maybe even wreck my business, So you got to be careful.
Absolutely.
So
earlier you said something about with relationships, balancing, right? Like relationships and your workload. So how are you doing that now? I mean, you're growing even more than it was before.
Yeah.
So how are you balancing all that and keeping that mojo still going?
So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to just keep my work to the work hours and my relationships to the after hours, and it's hard, especially, since I'm a bachelor, it's tough to, kind of balance that. And so it's one of those things that's almost the most difficult question to answer. But what I've been trying to do is, during the day, I focus on business. Don't get me wrong, I still reply if somebody calls or texts, but I try not to dwell on it, and I try to move on, and I try to just focus on what needs to be done right now. And then, once I have free time in the evenings, then I kind of refocus towards my friendships and relationships and that kind of thing, because you almost have to to separate the two a little bit in order to be successful. Until you can find somebody that's going to be there to help you.
With you in it.
With you in it and be there, to help. It's you almost have to keep it a little separate.
I think that's a great point, man. I read a book. Actually, I've read a few books, and they kind of suggested the same thing. I think they all are stealing from each other.
A lot of those books
they're repeating each other.
Yeah.
But they exactly said the same thing. You have to be able to separate them. So if you're going to be in the business deal, you're in the business deal. You don't bring your relationship into that.
Yeah.
When you're off the business and you're in a relationship, you don't bring the business into that at all.
Yeah.
Or like even time-wise, because a lot of guys, when they're starting to become an entrepreneur, you got to spend a lot of hours, and you can vouch for that. Sometimes you can go like 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day because you got to get shit done.
Well,
so
yeah.
And here's the thing. True. And here's the thing, Jay, is that so let's say if you have a girlfriend or a spouse or a partner in life, and now you got to do that. So so now that partner's probably like, well, you can't spend any time with me because you have to do that, right? Because you have to grind through that.
Yeah.
So
it's hitting home here. Yeah. Those long hours take a toll on relationships. They really do. And I can't count how many arguments I've had. Like, you worked a 20-hour day today.
Wow.
And you
when you eat and sleep.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, in August I have so much to do that I end up working.
That's all the turnover for the apartments and all that.
And I end up working 17 to 20-hour days, and I barely have enough time to reply to a text message or give a call back. And relationships take a big hit on that. And if somebody's not going to be understanding of that, it shows up real quick. And you can't blame them. When you completely just disappear, they're thinking, well, is he really working? You can't blame them for that. But at the same time, being an entrepreneur, you almost have to have somebody that's going to be secure enough to be like, oh no, this is his busy time. And
it's good to have respect for each other's dreams, goals, right?
Yeah.
So if that person is understanding that, maybe like a hey, this is how it's gonna be there. Is this how are you okay with this? So you're kind of like compromising and agreeing on something.
You can warn somebody all you want.
Sometimes it just doesn't work.
You can warn somebody all you want, but when you disappear for 2 weeks and they are barely getting a text message back, and you're so tired that you can barely see straight, it still takes a toll.
And here's the thing, Jay, is that a lot of people start wanting to be an entrepreneur because they feel like it's a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm just going to open up the business. People are going to start coming
rich.
In, and exactly. I'm going to become so rich, and I could just walk away and go on an island, and my money is just coming in. But right now, you are literally scoping it out for everyone that, hey, being an entrepreneur takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Right now, even with your business growing so much, you're still putting a lot of hours at times, right? Not only that, you're making a lot of sacrifices. So people have to understand that, hey, those hours and those sacrifices, even in relationships like you're talking about, part of that you had to sacrifice because you had a bigger goal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You always have to go back to, hey, I have to get this done.
Yeah.
The hunger that you have of this goal,
and and the right person's going to be okay with that.
You mentioned that you went through those tough times about the balance, but lately, as knowing you as a friend, I've noticed that you've been able to really balance that pretty well. So you mentioned that, I think that's a key important part for people to not even in business, just in life in general, you have to be able to balance a lot of things, right? So you mentioned reading books, right? So bringing stuff into your brain. But the right information, right? Because that's important, right?
It matters, and I'm not talking about reading a romance novel because that's not going to help anybody. That's just going to make everything worse, But read for fun. You would still want to read those if that's what you really like. But read some self-help books, read some meditation books. The Power of Now was one that I mentioned. That's really, more about a meditation kind of, but, it also plays into relationships and that can really help you. Being part of those business groups, especially in like a bigger city, they really help. I highly suggest if you're having a lull or anything like that, definitely, get involved, get out there, don't just sit at home wishing something would happen, dress to impress, go out and meet some new people, because like I said, one contact could change your entire business, your entire life, hell, you might even meet the right person.
Yeah.
You never know. So
you touched a good point about dress to impress. Not even just dress to impress, but that
dress for success.
Success.
Yeah.
But it's that one time, few seconds that somebody's going to see you for the first time.
Yeah.
They're judging, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So, obviously I'm a painter. I don't paint. I don't paint in this.
You look good, by the way.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, I look great, actually.
So I don't paint in this, obviously. And on a typical day, I don't wear this.
By the way, you're matching.
I do. I match your wall.
You are matching, bro.
I had no idea you painted it this color.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I hadn't been in here since you had me look at it.
Oh, that's awesome. You can just stay here forever now. You're
Yeah.
going to be our mascot.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No, but it's, it's important, First impressions mean more than most people realize. Same with, being honest. One lie can ruin a relationship permanently. And in business, even a fib can be looked at as a lie. I've always said, you should be honest to a point. You shouldn't be divulging all of your secrets to somebody just because you want to be honest. But you should definitely not be saying lies. You should be telling them the truth and nothing but that. And because most people can read right through it, you'd be surprised. And I think that's another key is ethics. That was really big at KU, was teaching everyone ethics. And everybody's rolling their eyes, going, "Oh God, ethics again." But
I think that's a subject that's a little controversial itself, is because everyone's ethics could be different than the other, right?
So I never suggest matching other people's ethics. I suggest being better.
Yeah. Then exactly.
I suggest being better because I can't count on all my fingers and toes and everything else. How many times people have said, you were the honest person. You came in here and said, this is what you need to do. And I even sometimes I'll be like, hey, even if you don't hire me, make sure you're using this type of product. Make sure you're doing this. I'll go through an estimate with people, if they have the time. I'll go through an estimate and I'll be like, hey, even if you don't go with me, like this bare wood has to have an oil-based primer.
And almost nobody does that.
No, nobody. And
nobody cares.
No, they don't care. Yeah, and that sometimes is enough to get you that client right there. Enough honesty, and sometimes that's all it takes. Because people can tell if you care. And I genuinely do. I genuinely, want to help people with their projects, and people can tell. They can see right through you. And granted, if they're just looking for the cheapest person, they're probably just gonna go with the cheapest person. And I attest that I'm just never that person anyway. So, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be the cheapest because, typically you gotta cut corners and do things not so great. And I try to hold it to a little higher standard. And that's where we kind of set apart, and that's kind of where I make us stand out. Is I may not be as cheap as company XYZ, but I guarantee you're going to walk away with a smile. With this experience, you're going to get exactly what I said, how I said it, when I said it. And that's that matters. You know, people can tell if you care. You know, people can tell. The first time you meet somebody,
right?
You know, they go, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you," and they just walk off. You know, you can tell that person. You know, they either they're really busy or they don't care. You know, but if you lean in and say, "Hey, you know, what do?" You know, you lean in, you ask them a few questions, you know, and genuinely care. Somebody's going to notice. Most people will notice, honestly, and sometimes that makes all the difference.
You know, you speak about care, and again, you know, I know you, Jay, so I'm gonna probe some things out of you real quick.
Here it comes.
So when you were younger, high school years, and I know you, you've always been a caring person, to the point to where you were actually taking care of family.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So the fire that you have in you, and the want, and all these things, and all the ethics, all the care, everything you're talking about, really comes from even a young age. The things you had to go through, and the things you decided to do yourself. So I don't think the viewer. I think it'll be good for the viewers to kind of maybe get a little bit of a grasp of, you know, maybe a little bit of the childhood of, hey, how things happen, where you kind of got to, and what you really did in that situation, because that's important. You know, we talk about our past is, you know, our past, but really the way I look at it, a lot of the things that you have now really came from a young age of what maybe you didn't, or what things happened to, and what choices you made to where it really made who you are now, and what you keep doing. And it's like a mirror almost. Like I can see a lot of reflections because I've known you for years. So I think it's important, you know, for the viewers to kind of get to have a little bit of that story. You know, maybe you can share a little bit of that for us.
So, you know, like I said, from a young age, I've always kind of been interested in fixing things. And like you said, I've always been a passionate guy. And that comes off in all aspects, and you know, especially like caring for people, and you know, I've always been labeled as the person that'll give my shirt to somebody in need, and you know, I really have a few times. I've literally given my shirt.
I think you have given me a shirt here and there.
I've literally like you know, sometimes you got it. You know, my childhood, you know. You could talk about a million things, but you know, one thing that I would like to say is, you know, I always had a very good support system, whether it be friends or family. You know, my dad kind of started me, you know, working at a young age, and he was really influential. My mom, she's been influential as well. You know, same with my brothers. You know, they've all had a very positive, you know, influence on me in one way or another, you know, and they've all changed me in some way, you know. And
but it's, see, the story you're sharing right now, and I'm gonna keep probing this at you. The story that you keep sharing is positive, which is good. But it wasn't always rainbows, right? It wasn't always positive. No. Even with all the good things that you have taken out of that, which was your choice, because you could have taken a lot of negative things out of that. There was hardship.
Tons.
There was issues. And I think that's what I'm trying to probe at you, is that, you know, I want everyone to understand is that, you know, it's not always rainbows.
No, actually, part of the reason why I'm so positive is because of all the negative things that have happened in my life. You know, I wouldn't say that my childhood was difficult or anything like that. You know, a lot of people had it way worse than I did. But yeah, I mean, I definitely had bad things that happened. I was definitely kicked down and knocked into the dirt, you know, many, many times, you know, from one thing or another, you know. And the thing is the more you focus on the negative, the more it kind of rules your life. And I learned from a young age that, you know, if something's going to be negative, you know, you got to have a 10-second memory. You know, yeah, that was terrible. Okay, I'm going to complain about it for the next 10 seconds. And then I'm going to try to just step away from it and say, okay, what did I learn from that? You know, my parents got divorced, you know, when I was young, you know, that's very normal, you know, and yeah, it was painful
these days and age for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's very common. So I mean, so most people would say, "Oh, that must have been terrible." You know, no, my parents were great. They were very supportive. You know, sometimes the step family that they brought back in, you know, wasn't so great. You know, sometimes that didn't pan out so well, but. You know, I was very fortunate that they were very cordial about it, because I definitely saw, you know, especially with one of my step family experiences, that they really weren't. You know, they were always fighting back and forth and over custody and stuff like that. And my parents, you know, from day one almost had it figured out, and I was always very appreciative of that. So it definitely, you know, helped. You know, I mean, it was a bad event. But there was tons of positive things that came out of that. I got 2 Christmases. No, but all jokes aside, you know, there was tons of great things that happened, you know, because, you know.
It's almost like having 2 birthdays, too.
Yeah, I did. I got 2 birthdays, too.
all sorts of doubled the fun.
No, you know, but, you know, it's not about that. But, you know, you gotta sometimes you got to really search for the positive things. And sometimes they're like hitting you in the face, you know, but you got to think about it as, you know, everybody's got those negative things that happen, you know, which one was worse doesn't matter. You know, what matters is what you learned from it, how you changed from it, and how you can grow from it. And if you're not doing any of those 3, then you sided with the negative part. You know, if you're siding with the negative aspects of life, you're going to constantly do that. And you know, I get called over optimistic all the time, and I am. I don't care. I am. You know, and that's just the way I'm going to always probably be. But you know, I'm a firm believer in you create what you want. And if you're secretly, you know, saying, "Oh, my life was terrible," you know, your life's going to probably stay terrible. You know, I mean, if you're focused on that negative stuff, it's going to keep building and building because you never release it. You know.
You know, you say that, and it makes me think of a little bit about what I went through too, because you know we all have negative stuff that we can dwell on, right? And I could sit here and talk about all that stuff, and I'm not going to. But
I can be your shrink. It's all right.
But I think it's good to embrace and learn from that, like what you're saying. You know, it's good to understand it. You know, understand why those things happen, and just it'll make you stronger, and you keep the positive. You move on. You know, you based about, you know, living for the now, you know, which is important because you're that's kind of like saying, okay, well, I've put my past away. I'm not dwelling on that. I'm not living in the past. But at the same time, you understood that, hey, what your past has done for you to make you who you are now, to where you can succeed now and for the future.
And, you know, everything kind of plays a role. But, you know, like I said, you know, especially with the power that you have now, what you're focusing on right now matters more than what has happened to you in the past. Say tons of terrible stuff has happened to you just over and over and over. You could either say, oh, well, that's just going to keep happening. Or you could say, right now, I'm going to try to do something right now that's positive. You know, and you could change the whole turn of events, and suddenly you're going on a whole different path, and all that negative stuff was just you learning how to be over here. You know, there's a saying that says, you know, you can't really experience really great highs without experiencing really great lows. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, being a passionate person, you know, I've had some really bad lows, you know, and I'd be the first to tell you, you know, they were excruciating, you know, and I was really down and out at some points in my life, and you know, I thought about giving up. You know, I think everybody goes through that.
Right.
But I think it's necessary to go through some of those things and learn to deal with those things, learn to cope, learn to, almost accept things for what they are, and then learn from them. Mm-hmm. Because you're never going to get that really high without a really, really bad low. Right. And you're never going to appreciate it, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people who have who've had, kind of a rough life, they're so upbeat, they're so positive, because they're like, man, today wasn't near as bad as yesterday. Like, I'm doing great.
I'm doing good. I just woke up today.
Yeah, I woke up. I'm alive. Like me, I didn't die in the marathon. I'm doing great.
Oh my God.
And something else is, and I don't know if you even knew this, but I suffered with asthma when I was a kid, severely. Mm-hmm. So for me to go out and do 26.2 miles is, that's almost a dream come true for me. And most people don't think of running a marathon as a dream come true. They're like, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through something like that? Mm-hmm. But
your dream is different than someone else's, and maybe someone else's dream is. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It's what you wanted.
But when you grow up not being able to run like that, mm-hmm. And then now you accomplish that, mm-hmm. It's just the same as in business. Mm-hmm. It's achieving a goal, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and it's great.
And it's like you're almost battling your fear.
Yeah,
because I mean, I'm sure that you're always feared as what if my lungs can take it? I have this issue.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going forward, and you're like, I'm gonna go conquer this.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And it's funny you say that because I almost went to the doctor before the marathon. I almost went back and got another inhaler. Mm-hmm. So I haven't used one in years. It's been
mm-hmm.
a long time since I've used an inhaler or really even needed one. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, what if I had an asthma attack? Mm-hmm. I was like, especially running that long of a distance. Mm-hmm. And I was this close. I almost went and got one. I didn't. And I probably should have. I know a lot of my
family. Have a little safety.
I know
just in case.
Yeah, I'm sure my family probably wasn't very happy that I didn't run with one. But mm-hmm. But no, it was exhilarating to know that I can do that without it now. 20th in my age group.
Wow, that's pretty good, man.
And
this is your first.
Yeah, and I've never done a half either.
My God.
Never done a half marathon.
That's amazing.
So I was really happy with the results. I was flying. Mm-hmm.
So I mean that right there, man, is amazing because a lot of people, they want something so bad, but mm-hmm. then they have these fears, right? Mm-hmm. So just like how your story is, like you could have been fearful of saying, "Oh, well, I might have an asthma attack, so I'm just not gonna do it." But you did it even without mm-hmm. going to the doctor or having a safety net, right? So you took even a bigger risk.
I did,
right?
Yeah, and I did that on purpose.
And you mm-hmm. went through that, mm-hmm. and you became the 20th of your first marathon. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't experience that, mm-hmm. right? Because they don't just. Because of whatever fear, mm-hmm. they don't even try. But you just went. Go. You just did it.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to you earlier. I was running and talking because I tend to do that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to some people, and they all asked me, how many halves have you done? I'm like, none. Like, and obviously I've done some longer runs during training, and I've definitely ran those distances before, mm-hmm. but I've never done an actual race, half. And they all just looked at me like I was crazy. Mm-hmm. I got the same look from everybody that I told. They're like, oh my God. Yeah. They all thought I was nuts.
That's awesome.
At some point, though, if you're not getting those looks, you're not doing something right. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're trying to be an entrepreneur. If you're not getting those looks from people like, he's kind of crazy, mm-hmm. Then you're probably not putting yourself out there as much as you should be. You're probably not doing as much risk-taking as you should be. Mm-hmm. Because if people are surprised, mm-hmm. you might be doing it right. To get those looks, made me ecstatic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how much faster I started running mm-hmm. after each time. They're like, "You've never run a half?" I'm like, "Yep." And I just bolt. And I just take off, and I was running even faster. I had to actually slow myself down because I was going too fast. because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can sustain
That's
this for
funny.
26 miles. So I was having to back off and slow down a little bit.
Well, I think we're getting to that point, Jay. I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah.
Dude, you have brought a lot of wisdom, and I hope all these listeners are listening to all your tips because it's amazing stuff. I mean, you have done amazing stuff. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you, man.
I'm glad we're friends. I'm glad that we're like brothers.
Yeah, man.
So I really appreciate you being today.
Thank you for having me.
But before I let you go, there's always something I do for everyone who comes onto the show. Okay?
All right.
So I got a couple things for you.
Uh-oh.
So one is, as you can see, this shirt.
Uh-oh, do I get one of those?
I got you one of your own.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So there's that for you, bro.
Thanks,
That's
man.
That's yours. But
appreciate it.
Now, see, I've cheated because I known you.
Uh-oh.
And I know.
I know what that is.
I know what you really like.
Uh-oh.
So, I got you.
Oh, man.
A nice little cigar.
Thank you,
Because I know
man.
you love cigars, bro. That's
Thank
all
you.
yours, man. So, yeah, dude, I
don't
really
think I've
appreciate
had this
you
one.
being here, man. No? I don't
I've
remember. I went to that place. I was like, dude, give me like one of the greatest ones. I want to give it to my bro.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had that one.
That's awesome, man. But
yeah. Well,
thank you so much, man, for being here today.
I'm
dude.
proud of you too, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. And have a great night. We cut it right
Bye.
there. Yeah.